The sudden vanishing and appearing of stars research is the most powerful evidence in astronomy for Crystal Sereda's hyperdimensional solar system model we have today. It is the biggest breakthrough in astronomy since the invention of the Hubble and James Webb Space Telescopes. The ancient Hindu model of the cosmos reveals this hidden harmony of the order that Dante witnessed, which is verified in Crystal Sereda's model. In the ancient Hindu model, there are 7 lower lokas, which is the name given for planets, and there are 7 higher lokas for those who attain enlightenment and bliss to reside in after death. Each higher loka requires that a soul achieves a higher, inner state of enlightenment to reside there on that loka paradise planet. This knowledge predates the Hebrew and Christian models by over 1,000 years. The reason the lokas reveal 2 sets of 7 planets is because the 8th, Uranus, and 9th, Neptune, were not discovered until the 18th and 19th centuries. There are really 2 sets of 9 planets, counting the Sun. If we map the sudden appearing and disappearing star event that physicist Beatrice Villarreal, starting with the first date of Fatima, May 13, 1917, and we put in Crystal Sereda's model, we get a perfect match to the harmony of the order of Crystal's hyperdimensional solar system. May the 13th, 1917, the day the Mother Mary appeared to the 3 children at Fatima to begin the process, dated to the vanishing of 9 stars, April 12, 1950, 2 days after Easter Sunday, is 12,022 days. If we take 12,022 days divided by Crystal Sereda's magic number, 591, we get an orbit of 20.3418 days, which is the orbit of planet Vulcan superimposed in the position of planet 591. Starting from 20.3418 days, we enter the entire harmony of the order of Crystal Sereda's model to a degree of accuracy better than 98%. Using the golden ratio, when planet 591 orbits the Sun 20.3418 times, Earth orbits the Sun almost exactly 33 years, which is the period of time from the Star of Bethlehem to Jesus' death and resurrection on the cross, with the 3 hours of darkness caused by a mysteriously appearing planet, 13951, eclipsing the Sun to Jesus on the cross on Earth. In fact, the planet for the Seraphim, the 9th angelic heaven, will orbit the Sun 365 times, which is the inverse harmony for Earth. This solves the greatest mystery of Jesus on the cross, which is that planet Seraphim, which is in perfect inverse harmony to Earth during Jesus' lifespan of 33 years. All of this is revealed by mapping the start date of Fatima, May 13, 1917, to Dr. Beatrice Villarreal's vanishing 9 stars, April 12, 1950. This is astounding. This mathematically absolutely proves the data Beatrice presented on News Nation that Fatima was not an optical illusion witnessed by over 60,000 people in 1917. It was a sudden appearing and vanishing star event. It also proves the sudden appearing and vanishing of planets or stars is in perfect harmony to Crystal Sereda's model. In 1840, François Arago, the director of the Paris Observatory, suggested to mathematician Urbain Le Verrier that he work on the topic of Mercury's orbit around the Sun. Le Verrier made a stunning discovery of a new planet that orbited the Sun in approximately 20 days on March 26, 1859. The transit of this planet lasted 1 hour and 17 minutes, which ruled out sunspots which take 12.5 days. It was a planet that would then disappear not to be seen again, and thus became known as disappearing planet, hypothetical planet, Vulcan. Using the same model, if we map the discovery and appearance of planet Vulcan, March 26, 1859, to the vanishing star event of April 12, 1950, it is in 98% to the harmony of the order of the solar system to Crystal Sereda's model. The odds of this being true are millions to one against it ever being a harmony. The math is stunning. This means we can connect the dots on all of the suddenly appearing and vanishing star events on record and see the total harmony of how and when it will happen again. Crystal Sereda's formula of 591 to the golden ratio not only reveals the order of the 9 visible planetary spheres that we do know, it reveals the divine order of Dante's 9 levels of the angelic spheres and their correct orbital harmonies around the sun. In fact, they fit perfectly within the angelic order. One of the only hypotheses for how whole planets could elude astronomers is within the realms of the discovery of antimatter planets, antimatter galaxies, and perhaps antimatter people. Written on CERN's website, physicists now accept antimatter galaxies, which we know are made of planets, stars, and people. In 1928, British physicist Paul Dirac wrote down an equation that combined quantum theory and special relativity to describe the behavior of an electron moving at relativistic speed. The equation, which won Dirac the Nobel Prize in 1933, posed a problem. Just as the equation x squared equals 4 can have 2 possible solutions, x is equal to 2 or x is equal to minus 2, so could Dirac's equation have 2 solutions, one for an electron with positive energy and one for an electron with classical negative energy. But classical physics and common sense dictated that the energy of a particle must always have a positive number. Dirac interpreted the equation to mean that for every particle there exists a corresponding antiparticle, exactly matching the particle but with opposite charge. For example, for the electron, there should be an anti-electron or positron, identical in every way but with a positive electric charge. The insight opened the possibility of entire galaxies and universes made of antimatter. Could this solve the problem of the invisible 9 levels of the angelic planetary spheres that Dante perceived in his visions? But when matter and antimatter come into contact, they annihilate, disappearing in a flash of energy. The Big Bang should have created equal amounts of matter and antimatter. So why is there far more matter than antimatter in the visible universe? When Jesus resurrected in the tomb, there was a huge flash of light that left his photographic image burned into the linen fibers of the Shroud of Turin. A leading theory is that strong electromagnetic radiation emitting from Jesus' deceased body flashed into the linen fibers is what caused the image to photographically appear. What happens when ordinary matter meets antimatter opposite is that there is a huge flash of gamma radiation, which would have happened at the resurrection. This would mean Jesus' antimatter self met his matter self, and they both annihilated and converted back into pure high-frequency energy. Was this high-frequency energy Jesus' new resurrected body that he used to appear to his 72 disciples and 12 apostles for the 40-day period after his resurrection? In a rare Christian manuscript called The Secret Gospel of John, when Jesus appeared to John after his crucifixion in a body that shone like the sun, Jesus tells John that after multiple Elohim, gods and goddesses, fashioned the human being, the Adama and the Eve, unknown to the supreme God above, who plants a luminous seed in each human called epinoia, allowing the human to surpass its creators, tricking the chief of these creators, the chief deity Yaldabaoth becomes enraged and casts the human race to the lowest region of matter itself. Not the lowest geographical region, but as if a code on matter itself. We might now know the answer. We were cast into the matter universe where we could not see the antimatter hyperdimensional solar system universe above us. This is what Beatrice shows Dante, that every planet in our solar system has a paradise vibrational sphere. The known planets are not empty of human souls or civilization, just as the ancient Greeks taught, but full of complete civilizations invisible to human telescopes and eyes. It was the code on matter, the atom itself, of which everything and everyone is made, that eluded us and made us fall into a universe where we could not see any other life on any of the planets or stars but our own. In 2023, news broke at CERN that, just as Einstein had predicted, verified by experiments, antimatter responded to gravity the same way ordinary matter does. That would mean hyperdimensional or antimatter planets that elude astronomers could be maintained in a gravitational orbit around the Sun, or perhaps what the ancient Greeks called the sun behind the sun. They are just lacking Crystal Sereda's after-death simple formula to detect it. Zecharia Sitchin, author of the translated Sumerian and Babylonian ancient texts, 7 books called the Earth Chronicles, starting with the 12th planet, reveals a legendary mystery of gods and goddesses and planets, of these beings who came to Earth and created the human race, the Adama and the Eve, giving it a huge DNA upgrade, explaining the sudden leap in human evolution not explained by modern archaeologists. These gods and goddesses, called Anunnaki, came to Earth from a planet at the far reaches of our solar system called Nibiru, with an orbit estimated at almost 3,600 years of Earth time. They visited Earth over 400,000 years ago and had bases on our moon and neighboring planet of Mars. We will see that when we apply Crystal Sereda's formula, 591 times the golden ratio, starting at Earth, the orbits of the planets of the outer solar system, and the orbits of 2 planets past Pluto. And finally we come to an orbit that is 99.2% accurate to the projected orbit of Nibiru. This is absolutely groundbreaking for those who believe this planet of the creator gods and goddesses is real. How could the formula of Crystal Sereda, now living on the other side of our world, be this accurate to this ancient knowledge of a planet with an orbit this huge, 3,600 years? Now, starting at Crystal Sereda, calling out my name 591 days after she died as code, which is 86% of Mars' orbit, and noting that Mars is out of the golden ratio harmony, times the golden ratio going into the outer solar system. We get an orbit for an invisible planet of the angels as per Dante's visions. We will fulfill the angelic order next. Times the golden ratio again, we get 91.2% accuracy for the orbit of dwarf planet Ceres. Times the golden ratio again, we get an orbit for another invisible planet of the angels. Times the golden ratio again, we get 93.5% accuracy for the orbit of Jupiter. Times the golden ratio again, we get an invisible planet of the angels. Times the golden ratio again, we get 98.567% accuracy to the orbit of Saturn. Times the golden ratio again, we get an invisible planet of the angels. Times the golden ratio, we get 90.48% accuracy to the orbit of Uranus. Times the golden ratio again, we get an invisible planet of the angels. Times the golden ratio again, we get 82.8% accuracy for the orbit of Neptune, which is out of harmony, being lower than 90%. Times the golden ratio, we get 95% accuracy for the orbit of dwarf planet Mamake. Times the golden ratio again, we get 94% accuracy for the orbits of dwarf planets Eris and Gong in the same belt. Times the golden ratio, we get an invisible orbit. Times the golden ratio, we get another invisible orbit. Times the golden ratio, we get another invisible orbit. And times the golden ratio for the 24th time, which is 12 times twice, 12. We get Nibiru's orbit accurate to 99.2%, which is phenomenal accuracy considering also that Zecharia Sitchin's data suggests a 3,600-year approximate orbit for Nibiru. Zecharia Sitchin extracted Nibiru's approximate 3,600-year orbit from ancient sources from Sumerian, Babylonian, and Mayan texts. If the orbit from ancient sources is this accurate to Crystal Sereda's formula, as is the whole visible solar system, we could assume the stories of the actual Anunnaki gods and goddesses who fashioned the human race by genetical DNA manipulation of Homo erectus, using a percentage of its genes mixed with a percentage of theirs, is also mythically true. Sitchin decodes the purpose of this new human, the Adama and the Eve, was to create workers, slaves, to mine the gold mines on Earth and deliver the gold to the Anunnaki so they could use this gold to protect Nibiru's atmosphere from failing. Gold has scientifically established radiation shielding properties. Why does Jesus confirm this same myth in the secret Gospel of John, banned by the Christian Church, a nearly identical mythic story to his apostle John? Jesus tells John that the deceiver god, Yaldabaoth, employs 365 of his ego-driven lower vibrational angels to fashion the human being, each one responsible for a body part and function of its feelings, such as lust and fear, used to manipulate human beings. And I quote Jesus talking to John in his resurrected body of light. This is the number of the angels. Together they are 365. They all worked on it until limb for limb, the natural and material body was completed by them. Unknown to the chief deceiver god Yaldabaoth, and quite possibly the Greek equivalent of Zeus, the supreme god, above all, with Jesus, plants a luminous seed called epinoia, which is feminine in Adam and Eve, that will make them and the human race have the luminous potential to rise above their creators, and I quote Jesus in this very rare manuscript. And in that moment the rest of the powers became jealous, because he had come into being through all of them, and they had given their power to the man, and his intelligence was greater than that of those who had made him, and greater than that of their chief archon, Yaldabaoth. Quote, and when they recognized that he was luminous, and he could think better than they, and that he was free from wickedness, they took him and threw him into the lowest region of all matter. Jesus tells John that once Adam was thrown into the lowest region of matter, the activation of the feminine luminous spirit called epinoia would guide human beings into a higher light than their faulty creation, and they would rise into a higher order in the harmony of the universe. after a great battle over human beings' spirits by demons, dark angels, and God, and the higher, upper order of the angelic paradise. This is the battle that Crystal Sereda had to endure and fight over her 5-year battle with those voices in her head. Isaiah 66:22 reveals that God is making a new earth and new planets, which are heavens. Could these be the planets in Crystal Sereda's formula of 591 to the golden ratio? For as the new heavens and the new earth that I am making are standing before me. Isaiah 65:17, for behold, I create new heavens and a new earth, and the former shall not be remembered or come to mind. 2 Peter 3:13 says, but according to his promise we look for new heavens and a new earth. This means we have to look for these new planets, and Crystal Sereda's formula shows us where they are right here in the solar system, confirmed by the miracle of the sun at Fatima, Jesus' Ascension Day, and Yom Kippur. Dante was perhaps the first to see them in his visions. Revelation 21:1, then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. Now we will see proof in the prophet's timeline of the 591 and 139.51 heavenly planets. 591 years on Earth is 365.256 years on planet 591 due to the harmony being Earth to the golden ratio is 591, and 591 to the golden ratio inversely is Earth's 365.256 days per year. It is the same in factors of times 10, times 100, times 1,000, etc. is 1 to the golden ratio. 215,866.296 Earth days per 591 years divided by 365.256 is 591, which means planet 591 might be the new Earth, as 591 years on Earth is 365.256 years on planet 591. We will see the harmony of the biblical prophets to 591 and 139.51. Rabbinical Judaism calculated the lifespan of Moses corresponding to 1391 years before the Common Era. The birth of Moses being 1391 BC minus 5 years for Jesus being born in 5 BC is 1386 years before Jesus' birth year of 5 BC. 1386 divided by 139.51 is 9.934, which is 99.34% accurate to the harmony of planet 139.51, which means that both of their births are in harmony to one another to planet 139.51, accurate to 99.34%. To see this, just look at Moses' birth year, 1391, and there it is, 139.1, which is 139.1 times 10 equals 1391. The harmony is right there. Moses' brother Aaron, the prophet, 3 years older, would have been born in 1394 BC, minus 5 years to Jesus being born in 5 BC, which is 99.56% accurate to 139.51. Joshua was the next prophet after Aaron. He is said to have been born around 1355 BC, which is 1350 years before Jesus Christ's birth at 5 BC. His birth is still in high harmony to 139.51 at 96.76%, accurate to the perfect harmony of 139.51. The prophet Ezekiel is 596 BC. Jesus was born in 5 BC, which makes Ezekiel in perfect harmony to Jesus' birth because 596 minus 5 is 591, which puts Ezekiel in perfect harmony to 591 at Jesus' birth. This is utterly astounding, considering Crystal Sereda called out my name at 591 days after her death. Her message is incredibly profound. Muhammad, born in 570 of the Common Era, died in 632 of the Common Era, was the founder of Islam and the proclaimer of the Quran. Scholars debate Jesus' birth year between 6 and 4 BCE. If Jesus died in 30 in the Common Era, 33 years of age from being born in 4 BCE, Muhammad's birth is 573 years later than Jesus' birth, and Muhammad's death 602 years after Jesus' death. The average between Muhammad's birth, 573, and Muhammad's death, 602 years after Jesus' birth and death, is an average of 587.5 years. That is 99.4% accurate to 591 years, which is a high harmony to planet 591. In the year 621 of the Common Era, Muhammad's most profound vision was his night journey through the 7 levels of heaven, which some Muslims believe was a physical ascension, and some believe was an inner vision ascension that he experienced. This journey was in 2 parts, called the Isra and the Mi'raj. During the Isra, Muhammad flies on the back of a mythical winged horse to the site of what is now Dome on the Rock, where he is met by Abraham, Moses, and Isa, who they call Jesus. In the second part, the Miraj, Muhammad ascends through 7 levels of heaven to meet with God in elaborate details. The year of Muhammad's night vision, 621 of the Common Era, minus Jesus being crucified and resurrected in 30 of the Common Era, equals 591 exactly. This is so profound, because that means 591 years after Jesus' crucifixion and ascension, Muhammad received his greatest vision in the form of an ascension. This shows perfect harmony to planet 591 and demonstrates the ascension of Jesus 40 days after his resurrection and the ascension of Muhammad through the 7 levels of heaven are in perfect harmony to 591. So Ezekiel to Jesus is a 591 harmony, and Jesus to Muhammad is a 591 harmony, which means all 3 are within a 591 harmony. The Buddha has 2 noted birth years, 623 BC and 563. The average between both dates is 593. 593 is to 591, 99.66%, which is phenomenal. 593 minus Jesus being born in 5 BC is 588. And 588 to 591 is 99.5% accurate. This places the Buddha in near perfect harmony to Jesus' birth, and also Ezekiel, the biblical prophet. Note also that the Buddha's birth date was in harmony to 139.51 in a single solar year on Earth. We don't have the birth dates of the biblical prophets exact on a solar calendar, so we do not know in single years where their harmonies lie. Note that when 591 years pass on Earth, planet 591 experiences 365.256 years, which makes it the twin to Earth harmonically. In fact, it may actually be the new Earth itself. That would in the end mean that planet 591 is the biblical prophesied new Earth to come. When I was 25 years old in 1986, December 22nd and 23rd, both days, I was taken by the light through 7 levels of heaven in what was the most powerful spiritual awakening of my life. The heavens that I went through are the upper angelic spheres beyond the scope of the visible planets in our solar system. I was overtaken by the sound of the angels' astounding chorus thousands of times beyond the greatest music created on earth. At the time of the experience, I thought I was going to die when my body started shaking violently, and I was humbled to the ground and fell on my bed in Vancouver, BC at 4:15 in the afternoon. Suddenly, an old man appeared to me asking if I wanted to see an angel. He was accompanied by 3 women wearing white, and in a deafening thunder of angels' voices appeared the brightest light I had ever known, filled with more love and power, sheer power than a human could bear, and I was taken up and saw the earth far below. I was shown thousands of souls above the earth who were not ready to go beyond earth. This is a huge story. God told me through God's angel that these souls were not yet ready to ascend beyond earth after death yet. Hence, in Revelation, they would receive the new paradise earth. God was the light itself, which appeared as a bright super sun, but shined with all of the love, bliss, ecstasy, peace, power, beauty, wisdom, creation, and graces, and showing me the creation of the angelic heavens and the true purpose of the angels. I was given a new body in each of these 7 heavens that was designed to bear the glory of God at each level. The first heaven filled me with 1,000 times more love and ecstasy than any form of human love, pleasure, and joys on earth. In the second heaven and in each consecutive heaven, those qualities of God's glory multiply by a factor of 1,000 times, each time gaining a new body designed to withstand these godly vibrations. I was traveling at incredible speeds towards the highest heavens. The angels' voices never stopped and grew louder and louder as I ascended towards the source of God, which was its own Creator's Son, emanating love and qualities that we do not have words for. God is the sun behind the sun, the local Creator's Son of God. The galaxy is full of this network of Creator Suns as God that operate in a higher dimension above physical suns. I was shown in each of these heavens inside our own solar system. There are multiple levels, each containing a paradise planet that matches that vibration of that heaven. The souls who live there are comfortable with that supreme level of love and ecstasy at that particular vibration of heaven. The third heaven is 1,000 times 1,000 times 1,000 God's glory. And with these exponential increases in love, bliss, peace, power, beauty, wisdom, and creation, it gets more and more difficult to ascend higher. I was the most comfortable with the spiritual vibrations of the third level of heaven. I told God to stop at this point, but God took me higher to the 4th, 5th, 6th, and the entrance to the 7th. The levels of God's glory are simply unimaginable at these levels. It is very rare that a soul can live in these vibrations without real spiritual training. At the entrance to the 7th heaven, which appeared as a clear membrane in space, I could see God was still a higher sphere of light beyond where I was, and the angel's voice is more powerful with each ascending heaven. No one could reach God in totality. Each level of interior awakening is a higher level of God's love, bliss, and qualities beyond all creation. Each soul judges themselves, knowing which vibration they can live at and which planet they belong. The galaxy alone has a huge number of these solar systems, each one designed the same. That means that once you reach a third level of paradise, you can visit any star system with a planet in the galaxy at that level and all planets below that level. The third level is the last level where we keep human form. That form body is infinitely more perfect and beautiful than our earthly form. My eyes and ears in this third level could see infinite distances with perfect clarity, and hearing the same. It was an experience beyond all telescoping technology. Angels at this level can hear and see anyone on earth with total perfection and ease. When I passed into the third and the fourth, I got a new body that could withstand 1,000 times more of God's light than the third below me. No words. I became a sphere of God's light that is very large in the fourth. The angels' voices are the Creator's voices in perfect harmony with God, the Supreme Being. The fifth is unspeakable. I begged God to take me back down, but instead, God kept taking me higher. The sixth is 1,000 times the fifth. The angels singing, creating, and maintaining God's creation and existence. Praising God is a natural rhythm. It is completely effortless. When I came to the clear membrane of the seventh, I was told if I passed, my physical body on earth would terminate below. Getting near the membrane of any of the levels of heaven crushed the body I was in with tremendous waves of love and ecstasy and qualities that are unnameable, so I could not stay at the membrane for a very long time. I had to decide. If I crossed, only God could will me back. This is the point that if we cross, we no longer have will at all. We can see will ordered by the self is an illusion. We can see that will ordered by the egoic self is an illusion because the small self does not contain the final wisdom to know what to do with its isolated self. The Supreme Creator Self is the only perfection. It is so obvious. I wanted to go back to tell people God and heaven are more real than any reality we experience on earth. There is nothing the ego can create on its own that even compares to 1/1,000,000th of the first heaven at all. That is why this earth is such a failure. It is mostly ego-driven creation and selfish by its very nature. We surrender more and more of our will to God until we realize the ego, small self, cannot create much of anything on its own and is only partially connected to God the whole time it is attempting to exist on its own without God. I did not have any problem with surrendering will to God. The more I surrendered, the more bliss and love I felt. After suffering in a body on earth, it was so difficult to bear the supreme levels of God consciousness until I had adjusted to the supreme levels of joy and perfection of mind. After some time at each level, we do adjust and we get used to being supremely fulfilled. I went back down to my body, and the whole thing repeated the very next day, December 23rd, 1986, and again, at the 7th, I chose to go back down to try to spend my life awakening. This is a very brief description of those 2 days of my life in the heavens. I could still hear the angels' voices at Christmas, the 25th of December, when I would fall asleep. When my wife Crystal Sereda died, I had this huge experience to refer to in her own ascension. I had more than that, because years later I would meet Jesus Christ himself in 1994, in mid-October, for the first time. The totality of the heavens are contained in this one divine person, Jesus Christ. It was more difficult to bear the glory of God looking upon the resurrected face of Christ than entering the seventh heaven. That is because Jesus is the Supreme Being, embodied as its avatar.